I told the team that asked me to join them as vice president that I would not affirmatively make the case, but that if I was asked, I would not remain silent. And I've told you this before. This was not difficult for me. You know, ever since the last time I've spoken to you from this stage, has been pointed out, we've made progress, notwithstanding the onslaught by this administration and the regressive elements in American society. But it was a time of tremendous progress and historic change that you helped guide us through in our administration. Because of you, particularly people like Dennis and Judy Shepard, I don't know where you are, folks, but stand up. I know Jill and I know what it's like to lose a child. We understand the pain never goes away. And I admire, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I admire your courage in every single day, taking on the elements that caused your son's death. But it takes enormous courage, because every time you do, it takes you back to the moment you got the news. We owe you. And I hope you know how grateful we are as a nation for all that you have done these 20 years. To speak out and demand a better, safer world for our children. And the truth is, the speed with which things have changed is no thanks to any national figure. It's because of people, like I just introduced, people who had courage to come out and speak. That's why I'm so happy to be here to say thank you. Thank you to generations of brave advocates, from Stonewall to ACT UP to PFLAG moms to student leaders. We've come this far because you spoke up, because you demanded justice, because you've been denied too long. And you did it despite the voices of intolerance that tried to tear you down. And many of you, especially those of you closer to my age, paid an enormous personal price, a professional price, and literally put your lives in jeopardy to speak out. That's why we are here today. You risked your livelihoods, your very personal well-being, but your tenacity, your integrity, literally bent the arc, the moral arc of this nation, much more toward justice. And thanks to you, our children, my grandchildren, will grow up in a world that's far more just, open-minded, and humane. But our work is not yet done by any stretch of the imagination. The stakes are much too high. As you know, when I was vice president, I spent a lot of time traveling around the world, and I'd speak out about this issue in these countries. And I'd be told in some of the countries it's cultural. Well, let me tell you something. Those who try to excuse this kind of discrimination in the name of culture, I say, prejudice is prejudice and humanity is humanity. It is a crime. And using religion or culture as a license to discriminate, demonizing the community, individuals to score political points, is no more justifiable around the world than it is here at home, and our policy should reflect that. Despite all the progress we've made, there are still so many young people in America who feel so abandoned, so alone, so afraid. They struggle to picture a future in which they're safe, affirmed, or loved. Some of you don't have to imagine what that's like, because you lived through it. You remember those sleepless nights, lying in bed as a kid, staring at the ceiling, wondering if or when to come out. What do I say? What are they going to say to me? What will happen? The terror in your heart when you first spoke your truth. Coach, I'm gay. Mom, I'm transgender. Not knowing how your loved one might respond. Looking down the street, how many of you have done this? Looking down the street and looking behind you to see who's watching before you hold your partner's hand or steal a kiss. Literally looking over your shoulder all the time. That you're here tonight speaks to your strength and to your resilience. But I suspect many of you got some help along the way. The teacher who may have looked out for you in the classroom and even in the hallways of your school. The relative or neighbor who stood up for you when others wouldn't. The faith leader who reminded you that we're all born perfect, created in God's image. The friends who fill the void of your biological family with their unconditional love, acceptance, and support when you did not get it at home. No court decision or law or policy or poll can replace the impact of the loss of unconditional love. It's not how we're made up. It's not the measure of decency. Michelle is a mother of an active duty Marine who came out to her over Skype while, like my son, was deployed for a year overseas as a Marine. In Michelle's words, quote, she could see, quote, a huge weight lifted off of him when he came out with her. And when her son said he was afraid, quote, you and Dad wouldn't love me anymore, can you imagine? Her response was exactly what every parent's response ought to be. She said, I'll love you even more. Because every single time you meet someone who has hate in them, I'm sending extra love your way to get you through those tough times. That's what mothers should do. Imagine how relieved that young Marine must have felt at that moment. Imagine the burden lifted off of him. And many of you know it. To feel that certainty of a parent's love while deployed thousands of miles away in a battle zone. To know you're not alone. We can't rest till all of our young people are affirmed and accepted the same exact way. That's why Jill and I, when we set up the Biden Foundation, as she spoke about, recently launched an initiative, As You Are. That's the name of the initiative, As You Are. It's the beginning of a massive public education campaign to raise awareness of the importance of family acceptance in the lives of LGBTQ young people. People fear what and who they don't know and what they don't understand. That's why these stories have such incredible power, to reveal our common struggles and shared humanity. Together we have to work together to change our culture, our literal culture, to ensure a bright future for all of our young people. The reason I'm optimistic, I understand the history of the journey of this country. I know we can do this. But I realize people these days, and maybe many of you are pessimistic because of the personal and political onslaught against the community from so many quarters. But I am optimistic. Believe in how much more you can do. The reason my son felt so strongly about this, and Jill and I do, he died of cancer, a terrible disease. We have a foundation to try to end cancer as we know it. This is a disease and a blight on America. This disease of homophobia. And we can end it. And we can save my grandkids, my great-grandkids, and thousands of Americans. And the rest of the world will repair to the American standard. God love you, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.